Morning, everyone. My name is Heather Fisher, Chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Bring our meeting of February 15th, 2022 to order. It is 8 a.m. First item on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes from August 17th, 2021.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Second item on the agenda is a historic overlay district review of 1108. Before we do that, though, I guess I'll hand it over to you for an announcement.
Yep, Megan Elsag with the Planning Department. I just wanted to let the commission know we have a new staff member in the Planning Department. So Luke Mormon is with us, and we're happy to have him. He was previously an intern for a while, so he'll be in front of you today. Thanks.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So today we have applicant David Noah. He is requesting a demolition of a house and garage at 1101 8th Street South in the Erskine's Historic Overlay District. There is a letter in the packet along with photos of the existing condition. The letter explains the applicant's process and kind of background of the project, and he's present today to answer any questions as well. The applicant was emailed ordinance, and and he understands that future construction will need to come back to HPC for further approval. So that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Any comments or questions to begin?
Dave, when did you acquire the property?
When did I acquire it? I believe it was June of 2021.
2020?
21.
So if if you demolish it, how quickly would you anticipate construction?
I would like to try to get something done this year. I've got some rough plans drawn up. There's some things that need to be gone over and tweaked a little bit, but I want to make sure I do the right thing there and that fits the neighborhood and,
Sure.
all that.
And the intention would be for you to live there or to sell?
The intention is that I would be living there, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. It's an area that I grew up in, and it's, to me, that's where Fargo is. I mean, I currently live down in Silverleaf, and right now we developed Silverleaf, and I kind of wanted to have the idea of living out there. And I enjoy it there, but as I get older, I just tend to migrate towards back to downtown Fargo. So.
Dave, between demolition and construction, what is the condition of this site as far as, will it just be dirt or will it be fenced off or?
No, I think what it would be, the foundation or the basement is actually quite small. I think the house kind of overgrows the foundation. So I think what we would do is just rip it down and then fill it back in, because it won't be that costly because there's just not a big hole there. So, and then it would just be flat. So we wouldn't require fencing. I mean, unless the city required us to, but I wouldn't think so because it'll just be ground.
I have a couple of questions about some of the images included. And you had mentioned in your letter, let me go back to it. Okay. The structure is physically, kind of functionally obsolete. And then talking about numerous broken, windows and roof beams. Do you think it's structurally unsound?
Oh, definitely.
I do. If
Okay.
you look at the basement, I mean, the foundation obviously is the basis for everything. If you look at the foundation, just one of the pictures there, it's.
That's what I was going to ask you. Where's that one? The very last image. I'm curious as to where this is located, that wall that's crumbling.
Yeah, as you come down the stairs, so towards the center of the house, you come down the stairs, you've got the two you have two walls that meet. Those are the two walls that meet. So it's probably a third of the way to almost half of the way into the middle of the house, you know, so it's,
Okay.
This property had come before this commission in past years
oh, okay.
also for,
How did that go?
well, there was a neighbor who fought valiantly for the preservation of
Was that the
structure.
lady, the couple that lived right next door?
No,
Oh, okay.
but close.
Oh, okay.
And I toured that property almost 10 years ago, and I was afraid while I was in there.
Yeah, it's
It's my understanding it's been abandoned for some time, or
It's
it's not abandoned.
over,
per se.
over 10 years.
Yeah, it had been, the woman who lived there with her two daughters had passed away. And she was elderly, and
Right.
her daughters were elderly as well. And I think they walked away from the property because they didn't think they could sell it.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's just crying to be replaced. I mean, if you,
It was a shame
if
it
I
didn't
walked you
happen
through
years
there, we
ago.
wouldn't even be having a meeting. I mean,
I guess maybe I was looking for some more examples in the packet of even the interior,
None of the walls are square.
right, just some of those images to make a stronger case. I would have assumed from the outside a lot of things, but I think just for future reference and to let anyone else know, the more pictures we have, the better. To
Okay,
make the
sure,
case.
sure.
That it's really helpful.
part of the problem is you don't see the unevenness. I mean, you look at the picture and it looks like, oh, there's nice hardwood floors or there's French doors. Well, the floors are uneven, the French doors are kittywampus, you know, so it's,
Where the squirrel stash is or something.
right, yeah, it's, well, and if you see the stack there, not there, but, you know, the plumbing stack is completely
Right.
gone. I mean, it's, yeah, see the dark,
Right.
Right.
bottom
My
picture.
understanding that it was capped some years ago and backpoured with concrete, so it's not accessible.
I haven't even looked, but it's just, you know, and someone either took or they replaced or the furnace is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can be completely honest, when I was going through this, this looked better than my basement did when we started. So just, I think some more images throughout, even if it is uneven, it's helpful to make the case.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any interior architectural elements worth salvaging, not necessarily to keep within your own property, but to keep for prosperity for other builds?
You know, in the porch, they have that beadboard kind of ceiling thing. And I don't know if it's worth, monetarily wise, if it's worth taking that down versus just going buy new stuff. But there's somebody who a long time ago expressed the French doors and they can have them, but I mean, to me, they're nothing grand or glorious, to be honest with you. Besides that, no, there really isn't.
I'd like to begin from perhaps a different perspective on this,
Sure.
beginning with the purpose of a historic overlay district. And of course, this house is in that district to encourage additional efforts to preserve historic structures. And so I guess my question is, what efforts would be reasonable in order to preserve this structure? And I'm looking at your letter here, and the things that you mentioned that are problematic with this house, for example, the furnace has been removed. Whether you preserve this house or build a new house, a new furnace is required, so there wouldn't seem to be a difference in the need between preservation and new house. Ductwork destroyed, plumbing stack, kitchen ceiling, broken windows, none of these things are really fatal in any way to preserving a house. And a crumbling foundation is found all over Fargo, and there are several companies who deal with crumbling foundations. My foundation was not much better, and we had that restored. And so I'm not seeing here, actually in the letter, a real justification for demolishing this house. And there are no pictures of the interior, and so it's difficult to say what might be inside this house. But I think, at least looking at it from the exterior, it's not obvious that there is major structural damage to the wood frame of the house. And since this house was built in 1900, it means that the wood frame is old-growth timber, which is hard as a rock and heavy as stone, and irreplaceable. That is, you could build a new house, but you could never find the materials of equal quality to the materials in this house. And so, especially since there are no photographs of the interior, I'm assuming that the interior is reasonably restorable. So personally, I would not see either a architectural or economic justification for demolishing this house and building a new house, because the preservation cost, off the top of my head, I would say would not be much more than the demolition cost and then new construction of a quality that would be inferior to the quality of construction of this house.
If you look in my letter, there's a comment in there about the functional obsolescence of the property. And you walk into a kitchen that's probably 6 by 10, and there's 3 openings. And when you have 3 openings, you've got 3 pathways where you have to walk, so it kind of creates a hallway. So there's no place to eat. It doesn't make sense from the standpoint, actually, if this is a huge concern that we have, I would welcome everybody to come to the house. I mean, if it's really that huge of a deal, which I think it is, I invite you all to come to the house. I'll blow some snow and we can come there and take a look at it, because my pictures will not do justice to what you'll see there. And when you talk about the old timbers, I don't doubt that there's probably good, real measured wood in there, 2 inches, not 1 inch and 3/4 or 1.5 inches. It's probably 2-inch wood. And good wood underneath there. But you've got siding, steel siding that somebody approved somewhere down the road that doesn't fit the neighborhood. You've got, it's kind of patchworked. It doesn't fit. If I had to rebuild the stuff that they have on the house now, coming before the commission, I don't think you'd approve it. I mean, so it's, the timber's all covered up by steel siding that doesn't fit what I think that you'd require now of me.
Underneath the steel siding, is it steel or vinyl?
Steel. Or it's metal.
Underneath that siding is probably the original wood siding, which in many cases is in excellent condition because it's been covered up for many years by the
Well, they put
additional
it on there
siding.
they put the siding on for some reason, but I mean, I'm not disputing you, but we can't just say that the siding's in good shape. Just because, I mean, they covered it up for some reason,
Usually they cover it up so they don't have to paint it again.
which is a good reason, but still, we can't just take the leap of faith in saying that it's good siding.
I'd like to actually offer another perspective. I've grown up, I've known about this house for a long time. I pass by it daily. I'd say, one of the major deficiencies that hasn't been talked about is the fact that this house is actually sitting too low in the lot. That front deck is it's framed out of wood and it just sits in the dirt. And so I think, from a basic, elevation of home standpoint, the house is just, it will never be in a position that has positive drainage away from the house. And so I think that has just contributed to the disrepair of this home. And I think for projects like this, projects in any historic overlay, from an economic standpoint, my background, I do, sort of work like this daily, working on residential projects for folks, and finding somebody to appreciate the neighborhood of downtown and put, exorbitant amount of money into a home just to sort of get it structurally sound. And then, from a functional aspect, considerations need to be made for kind of modern day conveniences and modern day life. And we should be welcoming people downtown who want to invest in the neighborhoods. And I think this committee needs to probably, be more concerned with and maybe have a little bit more influence on what happens rather than, preserving something that is just gonna, become, fall into more disrepair because
Continue to be.
people, nobody's gonna buy this property and say, I'm gonna put in, several $100,000s to it before I can even, start finishing the thing. And I think that's more detrimental than the neighborhood than looking at this thing with a, insufficient foundation. I mean, it is not structurally sound. It detracts from the sort of essence of the neighborhood as it sits. I think if we have somebody who comes along and says, I want to make the neighborhood better by doing a new project here, I think I would welcome that wholeheartedly. But again, I think it's important for us to consider what happens, right? I mean, the approval process of saying, okay, well, what's the replacement project? I think needs to be scrutinized, and I think we need to be really careful about what we do approve for the neighborhood in terms of the work after demolition. So that's the consideration I would offer is that the house is just sitting too low, and over time that front porch is just going to rot away, and you're going to have to rebuild the floor every 15 years, and that's just not practical. So that's my 2 cents on the project. I would welcome the clearing of the site and a really nice, suitable project on the corner of this property.
I appreciate your comments, and I agree with the part where, on the backside, after it's demoed, I have to come in here and do something that you're going to approve, and I think that's equally as important as what we're doing today. I mean, I want to fit in the neighborhood. I want to blend in. I don't want to be like, oh, look at that new house. I want it to be something that fits the charm, the character of the neighborhood. And, it's a smaller lot, so it takes a little bit of work. You want to be unique. You want to be, you want to do something right for the neighborhood. And that's really what I want to do. I want to have a newer home, but I want it to look and feel just like the neighborhood is.
And you said you have something drawn up at this point, not necessarily finalized, but is it in keeping with this general gestalt of the neighborhood?
Mm-hmm. It's got, there's some shakes. There's the deep, the long double hung windows. It has there's some things that have to be tweaked on it, just probably more shakes and things like that. But I think you'd be impressed with it. And it's in the front seat of my truck. But I thought I'm not gonna. We'll visit about it, but that's a different day.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's important, though, at some point, that should maybe be part of the discussion, right? I mean, just from a homeowner's perspective, it's, you can prevent yourself from kind of getting too far down the road by having a sort of comprehensive understanding of what's going to happen with the property. But maybe that's something we can talk about later. I mean, it's kind of like, oftentimes, if you tear down, Lake Home and you don't realize that the new design is twice as big as the lot will allow, right? So, I mean, there's some time that's wasted there, but just in terms
And one of the other reasons, and I respect your comments, sir, but when you talk about the kitchen, when you talk about the small bedrooms, when you talk about, I mean, I don't want to poo-poo that, you can put new plumbing and you can put new stacks in and you can put a new furnace. I agree with you 100%, but there's something to be said about having a bedroom that's usable, having energy efficiency. What I'm going to put there is going to fit in the neighborhood, and it might not be, I beg to differ on the quality. I mean, granted, the old timbers that's great lumber, and I get that. I appreciate that, but some of the modern building concepts and so forth are also something to be touted as well. So It's just enhancing a piece of property that, honest to goodness, if I walked you all through there, I think you'd say, yeah, this is probably a good idea. Take it down.
I think that's what I just keep going back to. That, you know, I walk by this property almost daily, and yes, it's an eyesore. I would have assumed that it's probably prime for demolition, but I think from previous experience where it's maybe been approved too quickly before demolition, I think we, at least from my perspective, I need to see the evidence. You know, I need to see more. Walk through the house, maybe there's a video or something. I just need to make sure that we're just not jumping the gun on it.
This is a question I have for the city. Has the property been condemned?
No, I don't believe the property has been condemned. We do have.
I thought it had been.
No, we have a Melissa Galrup from the inspections department here, and she noted no. One thing I'll note too is we did get a handful more images from the applicant, and we have them available to pull up. We kind of try to sort through and not include redundancy, but we can pull that up for your commission just to see if there's any additional photos or maybe zoom in a little bit more. And then another comment that I'd like to make, if your commission does want more time, you can continue this item and get more information if you'd like.
Just a procedural question, then we'd have to chair the motion for a later date.
Table.
Or continue.
Well, since you're the one that wants to see more, would you like to make that motion?
Well,
I think they're still trying to pull it up now.
Yeah,
so
I think,
in
no,
case-
wait, see some images.
my understanding is that there's not been any, and I'm not talking about the previous time that somebody came before you, but currently there hasn't been anybody who's objected, or there was one person that came in and just heard that there might be something happening, that they said, what's happening? Beside that, there hasn't been any, at least not to me, any comments or concerns.
I think the main issue that our board is here to do to preserve the actual structure of a period. And in that, we want to be very certain that that structure is no longer able to be used.
Is there, but if you look at that picture there, is there anything significant about that structure? Granted, it's 1900, but does that scream to you? I mean, it's got a porch that was put on subsequent to the original structure. It's got steel siding. The only thing that you have on there that's probably maybe a stretch original are the shakes on the top there, the white. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was,
Are there interior images? That's what I'm. I'm really making you work on your first day here.
No, apologies. We should have had this a little bit more ready to go and include it all. And for future, we will make sure to get additional photos, interior photos, and have everything for your.
do I have them here? Because I did provide more photos.
We have all of the ones that you provided to us. It's just taking a little bit of time for us to click through for any new ones. And if you see one, if any members of the commission sees one they want us to stop on, please don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll zoom in.
And the major ones I took were of the foundation, because that's kind of the basis for everything.
Do you know what the floor joists are on the main floor, Dave? Like what dimension they are?
No, I'm just trying to look at the basement pictures.
Sure. Yeah, I don't see anything exposed down there.
I would be speculating if I told you so.
Sure. You see a beam there, but
Well, I think that there's a piece of steel that's a makeshift piece that's,
yeah. So we have if you go back a few, there's a piece of steel wedged between the top of a crumbling brick wall and the floor structure. Go back one more. No,
Other way.
Oh, here we go.
right there.
one more. No, keep going. Keep going. Right there.
There it is.
I think from what I see in the photo as well as some mold growing on the structure.
What's the approximate height of that basement? You know, from
Well, I'm
is it 6 feet
No.
to 4?
Yeah, I'm like 5'7", and I feel tall. It's probably 6 feet. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we receive further information and be able to inspect the house directly so we can know exactly what the issue is.
I welcome it. Let's go right now.
Field trip?
I would second that. I'd feel most comfortable seeing on hand before I make a motion to demo. All those in favor? Aye.
How about the next question? Let's just say that I go away. I mean, and I welcome you coming there. But let's just say that I go away. This property has sat there empty for more than, I'm being nice saying 10 years. It's closer to probably 15. And nobody's done a thing with it. So what are we preserving? I mean, you're
It hasn't been
preserving,
on the market, right? It hasn't gone up for sale until recently.
From my understanding, it
My
was the
understanding.
previous owner just didn't want it redeveloped. He just, I mean, good or bad, just left it to sit in disrepair, unfortunately. So, had this come in front of us 10 years ago, it may have been a different story altogether, and we would have said no instantly. But knowing that it's been derelict for some time, I guess my personal opinion, it seems like it's a loss. But
So like the first two conditions of consideration for demolition, right? Justified by the state of deterioration, disrepair, and structural stability of the structure. Clearly, that one for sure. The requested demolition is not detrimental to the overall style of the historic district. I mean, that's a little subjective, but again, I think in its current state, I think that one checks the mark. Okay, so then it's understanding the consistency of the comprehensive plan and other adopted policies of the city. So,
He's met the criteria.
you know,
that's on the backside when I come with plans.
right, so I
mean-
think like we are, you know, if this is the basis for determining whether or not, you know, we approve the demolition of a property, I think that it meets all the criteria. And again, we've got somebody who wants to do something great in the neighborhood. You know, in the likelihood of finding, you know, having somebody come by to say, I'm gonna sink a bunch of money into this thing just because it's old, is detrimental to the neighborhood. So I think I would pass a motion to approve, based on the fact that it meets all the criteria, so.
But the motion under consideration is, do you want to table this until they can tour the property?
Personally, I don't need to see it. You know, I've been around it, you know,
We
again,
haven't
it's sitting in the
we
dirt.
haven't voted on the motion.
Oh, okay,
We'll do that.
okay, sorry,
The
formalities,
motion.
right.
The motion on the table
Yeah.
is to table it to tour the property. So we have, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so motion is not approved.
Okay.
So we can do a
Now
new
we start
motion.
over. Okay, okay.
So to expound on Mike's comment, I agree, and I think this kind of lays out the criteria, or does lay out the criteria, and the interior state of anything is not in that list, unfortunately, or not. It is not in there. So as we're reviewing this item, that's our task, those 3 items. And as Mike stated, those items have been met.
You know, I mean, people remodel the interior of these old homes all the time, and they hack them to pieces. You know, and nobody cares. You know, nobody has any authority over that. I mean, I understand we're looking at sort of the palette of the neighborhood here, but again, when you look at that palette relative to the house sitting there, it's you know, it's a bit, you know.
Let me follow,
Here's-
I'm gonna follow that comment up, and this is just for me personally. I know where our boundaries are, right, that I need
Yeah,
to make
right.
sure, if we go back to, the demolition as it's written, that it needs to be, my big thing is it's structurally unsound. There are bits and pieces here I can piece together, but I just need a more comprehensive validation of what exactly I'm looking at, where it's located. Is this wall actually part of, what part of the foundation, right? So I just need a better case as to the structure and that it's structurally unsound. I just don't see it with the evidence. That's my concern.
Got it, yeah.
So I grew up in the neighborhood and went to St. Anthony's and rode my bike through this neighborhood. And one of the people that used to live there was the Helms family. Helms family their kids went to St. Anthony's. I went to Shanley with them. And so I called Tom Helms. Tom Helms is a couple years older than me. And I said, hey, Tom, I bought your mom and dad's old house. You want to take a look at it before I'm going to see if I can, demo it, put up something, cool for the neighborhood. Dave, I've got no desire to go back in that house. It should be ripped down. This is a guy that used to live here, and I thought that it would be some sort of emotional tie. And his comment to me was no desire. Now, that's all in the eye of the beholder. But that leads up to my next point. And granted, I'm not poo-pooing anybody's comments. It's all in the eye of the beholder. But if you look at the front of that house, it was the thing that you've got going for you is that it's in the district and it was built in 1900. But there's nothing significant about this home. The criteria that I have to put up something new, this stuff won't even be allowed. I mean, I appreciate that you're given a task, but it doesn't make sense. It just isn't there.
Heather, may I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I'd like to suggest a motion that we table this decision until our meeting in March, during which time those who are most interested in confirming the decrepitude of the property can tour it, as Dave has suggested he would welcome. And can we table this discussion and this decision until our meeting next month? Not on a decision to do anything else other than to give you some time to tour the property.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
And approved?
Thank you, Dave.
The next item on the agenda is any more comments or business that we need to discuss? Okay. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Next meeting is going to be March 15th, 2022. Thank you.